Thank you so much, Neelan. So literally just a couple of minutes, because I'm not really supposed to be here. Firstly, my warmest regards and wishes from our head of agency, Elka Wish. Mr. Michael Croft exemplified the UN spirit in terms of how we feel towards the Rotarians. So just before I just start, can I just say, could you all just give yourselves a massive clap to congratulate yourselves on the amazing work that you have done. And can you add on to that clap another clap for the two young poets that we listened to? Just additional clap. Amazing. So just really quickly, huge thanks to the Rotarians for everything that you do. Why was the poetry book so important? I don't know, many of you are working so hard, so tirelessly on the pandemic, you might not have heard. But essentially, we already, before the pandemic, had an issue with mental health for young people around the country. Nepal had, you might not know, the second highest suicide rate amongst young people in South Asia. And then along comes a pandemic. And what does that pandemic do? Of course, it creates enormous stress. It creates enormous stress on families. And then you find that some of the coping mechanisms that normally exist when families start to break down. I think we've all experienced that sense of stress and that sense of anxiety. But then you add that on to people losing their jobs, potentially domestic violence. We were just listening to some terrible stories that are coming out from the Children's Call Centre, where they've seen now an incredible rise in the number of calls that are coming through from children and people who are caring about children who need help. It is increased up to 500 calls a day during the course of the pandemic. So what we were seeing is all of these different issues were coming out. Mental health was a particularly bad issue, and what's also happened is that while there are support systems that exist there, what we're seeing, unfortunately, is that young people are not always reaching out. They're not always picking up that phone and calling. It means therefore that there are a lot of children, a lot of young people who are somehow getting left behind. We also saw that there was a huge rise in the number of suicides amongst young girls especially. That's 40% increase in rise. So it really required all of us to work together and to think a little bit creatively. This, we talk a lot, and it's amazing to see the resources and the supplies that you've all been providing. But there's one thing that you can all really do to help address the issue, and that is to help us to overcome the crippling stigma that exists around mental health. It means having conversations at home, with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues at work, and talk about mental health, talk about how we're all feeling, so we start to share and express all of the various things that many people are going through. And through this particular poetry, we found it was amazing because young people, as Nika was saying, 500 submissions came forward, they submitted poems. We've seen as well over the course of the pandemic, films have been submitted, there's some images as well, children have been drawing pictures. I don't know if some of you saw that the Dodora Tower was lit up a little while ago, it was in blue, and there were lots of pictures there of, in fact, they were done by children expressing not only how they felt, but expressing allyship. So what I understand from everything that you guys do is all about community, it's all about bringing yourself together and working. And one thing that I'd like to say is, echoing what Ms. Croft was saying, that UNICEF, UNESCO, all the UN agencies are very happy to collaborate with you, to exchange and brainstorm ideas. What we did with this one was really to empower young people to express themselves. And through the art of poetry, through the art, whatever it is, of filmmaking, drawing, storytelling, they also heal because they express themselves. They overcome the stigma. So this poetry book is incredibly important. We're so delighted to work with Libra and yourselves. And we're so looking forward to continuing to carry on this amazing work. You guys are all absolutely amazing. And thank you so much for just these couple of minutes, Nila.